and she lives in Elmont with her husband Kevin. Bailey, they've been married for 31 years. They share 9 children. 9 children, y'all, that wasn't the same. And she's got 14 if you count her daughters and her sons-in-law. They've got 6 grandchildren, and she's got a brand new puppy, Mally, who is a cutie pie. She's taught numerous Bible classes. She's held lectures for women. She teaches and helps teach our women's Bible study that we have there at Ephesus once a month. She and her husband worship at the Hall of Church of Christ here in Elmont. Some of her favorite things are reading, Bible study, teaching Bible studies. Of course, y'all about football all the time. She didn't know I put that in there. So she was baptized on April 1st, and she said that's the day she'll always remember because it's one of the most important days of her life that she'll never forget. So join me in welcoming Miss Missy Bailey.
Okay, can you hear me? I turned it off. Those of you that know me well know I really do not need a microphone. Coach basketball and teaching, I don't need a microphone. So, tempted and tried. Thank you so much for asking me to speak today. That was wonderful what we heard this morning. Somebody said, I'm excited for you to talk, but I hope you're as excited after as you were before. So we'll kind of gauge that in a little bit. So our text passages that we're using today, first of all, 1 Corinthians 10:13 and James 1:12. But 1 Corinthians 10:13 says, no temptation is overtaking you that is not common to man. God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond your ability, but with the temptation he will always provide the way of escape that you may be able to endure it. And then blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for he has stood the test. When he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life which God has promised to those who love him. So we have temptations and we have trials. And when we look at temptations, and we heard a lot about that just a little bit ago, but temptations are invitations to sin. You know, they often are self-involving and they're self-gratification. And we know that. And we think about, okay, temptations. We all face those. We just talked about how to get through that, meeting Jesus in the garden. But then we have trials. And trials are very different from temptations. They are circumstances that test one's faith. And when you think about it, temptations can come out of trials, right? They can come out of trials. But they are those that lead us away from Jesus, away from God. That's what temptations do. They take us away. Well, trials are different in their source and they're different in their purpose. Trials are intended for us to grow and be strengthened, while temptations pull us away. Trials can be initiated by God. That's hard to understand sometimes. And then they can be also the result of an external circumstance. Example of trials. Got some up here. Health issues. None of us ask for a health issue, do we? Got nurses in the room. Have any of your patients said to you, I asked for this, I want this? None of them. Loss of a loved one. You know, we're selfish. We want loved ones to stay with us, don't we? We don't want to let them go. Relationship issues. Lots of relationship issues. Abuse. Unfaithful children. When we poured so much of ourselves into these kids, and then they don't follow Christ. That hurts, doesn't it? Is that a trial? Does that bear on your mind? It does, doesn't it? And then unplanned financial hardships. How many of you been through that? You know? Walked in the other day, I was at work the other day, so happy. Oh my goodness. Walked down, talked to my customers, my clients. I said, how are things going? They said, great. We don't worry about you. We don't worry about you. And, you know, my Scrum Master, I'm working right now as a project lead. The Scrum Master, we don't worry about y'all. We know you got things going. My Scrum Master is a former school teacher, too. She taught kindergarten. I taught middle school in, the elementary years, and we thought getting out of the school business and retiring, we were gonna go to work with adults. Oh, no. We work with men. No. Just telling you. And you think get those little ones in line to go to the lunchroom or something, you ought to try to get men in line to get a project out the door. No. But we walked in the other day, and I left work. I had to go to work one day a week. That's not a trial. That's not But I walked out and left the building. Everything's great. Get in my car, drive home Wednesday afternoon. Drive home, got a message from my subcontractor, my company, and it said, give me a call when you get home. I'm like, okay. I get home, walk in the house, and I call my friend Jenna, and she's crying. And I'm thinking, oh no, what's happened? And she said, I gotta talk to you. And she said, I'm just gonna tell you up front, I'm gonna cry. And I'm like, they're letting me go, aren't they? She said, they're not just letting you go, they're letting almost everybody go. Now I left work, okay. Great, project's great, client's happy. By the time I drive 45 minutes, I have 20 people on my team, 16 of us have lost our jobs. And I'm thinking, what are we gonna do? And the first thing I said was, I didn't cry when I was talking to her because she was bawling. I'm like, it's not your fault, it's okay. She's like, no, it's not, and And so when I got off the phone, the first thing I said was, God, what are you trying to teach me from this? What do I have to learn from this? Because it wasn't just me, 15 people on my team. And while I aggravate you about men, those men were providers for their families. Some of them, their wives didn't work. One of them's got a newborn baby, And so, and it wasn't just, by the way, you're losing your job. This is Wednesday, the last day's Friday. No severance package, you're done. And so, that was hard. That was tough. That was a trial. It's been a trial. Now, I was blessed. They brought me back on Friday at 2:30. They called me and said, hey, we're keeping you and a couple of others to do a special project. So I was blessed in that. God blessed me. And then I had survivor's guilt because I got kept and some of the rest of them got let go. But, I didn't expect that. They didn't expect that. We didn't ask for that. But guess what? It happened anyway, didn't it? Trials are things that we really don't have control over. Temptations are often from negative sources, while trials can be initiated by God for growth and should be endured with faith and patience. By trials, God is shaping us for higher things. Now, that's easy to read, isn't it? Not quite so easy to live through, is it? How do we know the difference between temptations and trials? You ever asked yourself that? Is this something that, have you ever asked yourself when you're going through something, did I bring this on myself? Yeah. If you look at Psalms 42, verse 5, it says, why are you cast down, O my soul? And why are you in turmoil within me? Has your soul ever been in turmoil within you? Mine has. Lots of different reasons. And so, going through trials, while they may be initiated by God or initiated outside of us, doesn't make it easy, does it? Temptations are hard. But in some sense, we have control over temptations, don't we? What she said, there's nothing more important than Jesus. We can put those down. But a lot of times, do we have control over trials? We don't, do we? There's no control. I don't know if you do. I'm scared of tornadoes. I hate them with a passion. Dan Satterfield has nothing on me. When I'm up there next to that TV and I'm watching it, and I'm calling everybody going, it's in Mississippi and it's headed our way. You got an hour and a half to get to the shelter, you know? Look, she said, that's her mom. Is that what you said? Now my gift's coming. And the reason I hate it is because what? I can't do anything about it. I don't like to fly. You know why? I'm not in control. I don't let Kevin drive. You know why? Why he can't drive? He falls asleep. He can't drive. But then, I don't like not being in control. I was a very good, I wouldn't say very good, I was a pretty good little people parent. I am not a good adult parent. I'll just tell y'all straight up. I am not a good adult parent. People that are in my class with me, friends, but know this. Because I don't like not being what? In control. I don't. You know, when they were little, I told them what to wear, where to go, what to eat. I told them all those things. Now that they're adults, they tell me, and I don't like it. Sorry, I don't like it. But our souls hurt within us when we're dealing with these things, don't they? Then we go to James 1, verses 2 through 3. Everybody turn to James 1 if you got your Bible. Let's look at verses 2 through 3. I want to show y'all this, so I'll get to you this. I taught school for 26 and a half years. Long time, and then I decided I would retire to something else. And I told them this morning, I said, that story, you know, when the kid comes in and sits the dog in their homework, and you're like, yeah, right. Last night, my dog, my little Mally that she mentioned, does not like to go to the bathroom when it's wet outside. It rains last night, so she decided she was going to pee in my kitchen floor. So I was in there studying my notes and looking at my notes, and I set them on the little table next to my chair. I go to clean up the mess, and I hear a crinkle, 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 and I thought, oh my, seriously, dogs do eat. And I was yelling, don't eat my dog. No, I have no choice. So, anyway, let's go to James 1, and let's look at verses 2 through 3. Now you can see my page, because I have to put glasses on. And it says, count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. And that, the perfect and complete, lacking in nothing sounds good, doesn't it? But the question I ask you is this. Do we consider it pure joy when we meet trials of various kinds?
No.
I don't know about you, but I don't. A lot of times when I'm thinking about trials of various kinds, I'm thinking what? What are you thinking? Do what? For me. Or, you know, why me? For me or why me? And that's honest. And that's also part of being very human. This says it produces, the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. Does anybody here know what steadfastness is? I'm just going to use my notes. It says it up here. All right. What else? Perseverance. This said the quality of being resolutely or dutifully firm and unwavering. Unwavering. Loyal. Through trials, the trials we go through are painful. They're painful. They're hard. A lot of you in this room have been through trials. You've been through things worse than I've been through. And you know they're hard. And one of the things I saw, it says, yet they are a powerful gift of God born out of His deepest love to mature us. Now, if we change and flip our mindset from what we said a minute ago, why me, to, okay, this is a gift God's giving me to try to teach me something. What am I going to get out of this? It makes things a little better. Hebrews 12:11 says, for the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. Discipline is painful. I don't know about you guys, I got spanked when I was growing up. How many of you got spanked? Or I got whooped. We'll use this other thing. I got whooped. I got a whipping. And I deserved them. I have two brothers. I'm the worst out of the three by far. And those of you who know my brothers know that I'm not lying. I am. Mom and Dad would get onto them and they were like ducking their heads and I'm sorry. And it broke their hearts for Mom and Daddy to get onto them. I got out of without a spanking. I was going, yes, I get a spanking. And those of you who know my daddy knew that I got spankings, or know my daddy. So, discipline's painful. It's not easy to go through. But God is committed to our ultimate good. Is there anybody in here who believes that God is going to do anything to you that's not good for you? It's not easy. He's good. He's the faithful shepherd. If we look at 1 Corinthians 1, verses 3 through 4, it says, because blessed be the God and the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of all of mercies and God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our afflictions, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort which we ourselves are comforted by God. And then 1 Peter 4, verses 12 through 19. Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you, but rejoice insofar as you share Christ's sufferings, that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed. And then it goes on to say at the end, therefore let those who suffer according to God's will entrust their souls to the faithful Creator while doing good. And then 1 Peter 1, 6 through 7 says, in this rejoice, though now for a little while, if necessary, you have been grieved by various trials, so that the tested genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. So we're taught that we're going to be tested, aren't we? We're going to go through trials. These are a lot of passages, and for time's sake, I won't be going over every single one of them, but these are all women in the Bible that went through trials. The daughters, this is one that I hadn't really studied until I started preparing for this, but the daughters, I guess, the Zelophehad, is that close enough? Somebody know how to say it, you go right ahead, Zelophehad. They, in the Old Testament, were, this man, let's start, he only had daughters. You know? He didn't have any sons. Now, why was that a big deal in the Old Testament? Who can tell me that? No inheritance. That's right. No inheritance. So that meant that when they were giving out the land, they weren't going to get any. You know? And so did they have any control over that? They were born what? They were born female. Living in a male world, right? A lot of times today, are we females living in a male world for certain things? We are. And they stuck together and they went to Moses. And it says here, from the daughters of Zelophehad, we learn valuable lessons about courage, the pursuit of justice, and the importance of speaking up for yourself. They had persistent faith and they trusted in God to provide a just ruler. Now, if you know the story, you know that Moses went and talked to God, and God said what? They were right, and they were getting the land, didn't they? And then now in the end of it, later on, there was a fuss about it because they got, I think, double portions, But they had no control over that, did they? No control at all. It was a trial. But they stood firm, and they stood, like we talked, stood united, and they got through it. How many times when you're going through a trial do you isolate yourself? Raise your hand if you did that. I did that. You isolate yourself. You don't want to bother anybody, do you? Why? Is it because you're... Most of us, I really believe it's because we don't want to bother them because we feel like they're dealing with things. But a lot of times we're worried about what they're going to think, how they're going to feel. I've done that. Still do that. If they know the truth, what's going to happen of what I'm going through, it's hard. But they, with their sisters, they stood united. Now, when I walked in here this morning, there are lots of you that I know in here. Lots of you that I've known with your children, playing ball for me, teaching. Lots of you I grew up with. Bethany in the back, Lots of you I've known since before you were born, taught you, and now, And I think relationships, we have a relationship. And I was so glad to see all of you. And then there are people in here that I don't know. There's people in here that are my relatives, bless your heart. There's people in here that I don't know. But we're sisters, so I know you. And I can be united with you, right? We've got to learn to depend on each other and to be united and stand with one another. Because when we're going through trials, we need each other, don't we? Desperately. You look at Tamar in 2 Samuel 13, you know the story. Who can tell me what happened to her? You remember? She was raped by her brother. That's not easy. She did nothing. In fact, she did everything right. Don't do this thing. Don't do this thing. And then when he did the thing, she said, make it right. Do this. He didn't do it. And she had to live with those results. And one of the things that I was looking at with that said that she had to live with the results. Was this fair? No. Was she tested? Yes. When there's sin in the world, we all will suffer because of it. That's what makes us yearn for heaven. Jesus understood what she went through. He knows all about people choosing to do the wrong things, even though you, me, have reminded them to do what is right. Did she remind her brother to do what was right? She did, didn't she? He chose not to. It says, Jesus can get us through anything. Philippians 4:13. We know that. What does that say? You know it. What does it say? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's exactly right. She went through, and she lived with her brothers, and the truth is, we don't really know much about what happened after that. We do know that her brother and her sister-in-law named their child after her, so she had an influence. She had an influence. Then you have the next one. What happened to Hagar? You remember that? She was what? What was she? She was a slave. Now, I don't know about you. I don't want to be a slave. She didn't want to be a slave. But even more than that, she was given to who? To whom? To Abraham, right? Because Abraham and Sarah didn't believe in what? Or Sarah didn't believe what?
That she was going to have children.
That she was going to have a child. So like Missy, she took it into her own hands and was gonna fix that. Yeah, that'd be something. I don't know that I'd give another woman to my husband, but I'd be ready, no. But the thing is, she had to, did she ask for that? No. And then she did what? She had a child, right? When she had that child, what happened? What? Sarah didn't like it. Well, you did it. Now you know. We're women. We can say it. We changed our mind. You know. And then Sarah said, "What?
Go away.
Go away. You go away." And if you think about that, that's hard. Turn over to Genesis chapter 16. Verse 5 says, Sarah said to Abram, "May the wrong done to me be on you." Be on you. Listen to that. I gave you my servant to your embrace, and when she saw that she conceived, she looked on me with contempt. May the Lord judge between you and me. And Abram said to her, "Behold, your servant is in your power. Do as you please." Typical man. Okay, you caused this, you handle it. Right? And so what did Sarah do? She sent her away, didn't she? And then she goes out, and Hagar goes out, and she thinks, what's going to happen? I'm going to die. It says in verse 7, the angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, servant of Sarah, where have you come from and where are you going? She said, I'm fleeing from my mistress Sarah. The angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit to her. Now, how many of you would be like, sure, I'll go back? Do you want to go back? No. Was that a trial? Yes. Look at what she did though. And the angel of the Lord said to her, behold, you are pregnant, shall bear a son, and you shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has listened to your affliction. He shall be a wild donkey of a man, his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and he shall dwell over against all his kinsmen. So this is the important part. So she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her and said, you are a God of seed. What does that tell us? You are a God of seed. What does that tell us? He knows. Do we know while we're going through trials what they're going to produce in the end?
No.
You have no clue. No clue. I shared this with you last year, but we thought how I ended up with 9 kids is we fostered and adopted. Okay, I had 3, and then I had one of my students was taken away from her parents, and I took her, and then they kept calling us, and I can't say no, and so I took more, and so we got Ty when he was. I went to the nursery, brought him out of the nursery, took him home with us. You know? And I told you this last year that we had him, if we'd had him one more week, we'd have had him for a whole year. And they decided, they being the state, that he needed to go. Aunt and uncle had come out of the woodwork, decided they wanted him and Ashley. And so a week before we had him, a year before his first birthday, they came and got him. And he left our home. And I was mad. Because I had prayed, I'd done that. I prayed, God, I know you know this is not what's best. I prayed and prayed. And it happened anyway. And I was mad. So I didn't talk to God. I was mad at God, thinking I'm not going to talk to him and that's going to change things. He's like a little kid. He's going to give in and let me get that thing. You ever had a child or a grandchild, I won't pull, and then they won't do anything, and then you give in and you give it to them? Now, I wasn't so good at giving in to my kids. My grandkids, yeah. I'm sorry. They get it. And I got to be better about that. But for the longest, I was mad at God. Because he didn't do what I thought was what? Best. And finally, I turned it over to God. We were walking through the mall, what used to be the mall in Huntsville, and I saw that little serenity prayer. And I said, Kevin, can I get this? He said, yes. And I went home that night, prayed, and I said, God, I'm sorry. I know I don't know what's best. And, you know, after that happened, Todd actually came back to us. But that was preparing me for what happened with Red. You know, because when my son Red got sick at 15 with cancer, I did not do the same thing that I did. I didn't say, why God? Why are you doing this? I remember standing in the shower saying, God, just let me know how to deal with whatever you send. And see, I didn't know that that trial with Ty was preparing me for another trial with another child. I had no idea. Because I'm not what? All seeing. I can't see it. But who can? God can. Look at Hannah. Hannah begged and begged for what? A child. And her, I guess you call her sister-wife. I don't know. I feel lack of a better. Sorry, I watched Sister Wives. I should. And I said, why are y'all married to that man? I don't understand. And then I think you're not married to that man. So I argued with the Bible for the whole show. I'm weaning myself off of that, thank goodness. But same thing happened. What happened? She was being made fun of. She felt she was suffering. Did she have any control over getting pregnant? None. But what did she do? She continued, went and made it right. She prayed and prayed, and God gave her a child, and then she gave that child back to who? To God. So, and then we have all these examples. What is that clock right? What time is it? What time are we supposed to stop? 11:30?
You got 10.
Okay, I got 10 minutes. Give me a 5. Okay, so, all right. And so you got Hannah, then you got Ruth. What happened with Ruth? What happened, guys?
She lost all her sons.
She lost her husband and her brother. I mean, she lost her family. But she went on and went with her mother-in-law, and she was going through a trial, and she left her family to go with her mother-in-law, right? That's hard. Did she know that there were blessings that were coming?
No.
She had no clue, did she? Was she living through a trial? Yes. Esther. What was that? Esther was a slave too, right? Esther lost her whole family. She was called what? An orphan, wasn't she? And then she was sent. Those of you who watch her, she was kind of tribute, wasn't she? You know, she was beautiful. But God, her uncle told her what? What was it that her uncle said to her? Do you remember when she was worried about things? Maybe this is, that's exactly right. Maybe this is the time. You know? And then she said, if you turn over to Esther 4, verse 16, it says, she was dealing with things, and he told her, you know, look, you need to go talk to the king. And she said, but the king had what? He didn't call me. And if he doesn't call me, and he's not happy with me, he's going to do what? He's going to kill me. He said, go gather all the Jews together who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day, and I and my attendants will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. She didn't know what was on the other side, did she? Because she's not what? All seeing, right? Then you got Mary, the mother of Jesus. Do you think it was a trial watching her son go through what he went through? I can't even imagine. I've told, and Julie knows this more than the rest of us, I didn't start watching The Chosen until just recently, and it has made Jesus real for me. I know that sounds crazy, that Jesus has not been, he has been real, but it's made him real in a different way, in a way that my human mind can understand him, you know? And his mother, you know, in the episode when she said, you know, I need you to turn the water to wine, he said, but it's not what? My time. And she's like, hello. I asked you to go turn the water, you know. She brought that human element into it. That we see, in my mind, Jesus talked and read, and then Jesus didn't say anything else until he talked and read again. I know that. Jesus spoke and read, and then he was silent until he spoke and read again. He did. I know that's awful. I've been in church since I was a week old, but that was in my brain that way. And this has made me understand. He joked around, he laughed, he smiled, and they loved him. And you said that they were probably, yeah, they probably were. Because who wouldn't love a man that was good and kind and did right all the time, you know? We love Jesus because of his goodness, his kindness, and he does right. And then you have the woman with the blood issue. I don't know about y'all. I was thrilled when they said, you know, that you thinking I'm gonna say, let's go to the house. No, I was thrilled when they said, do you want to have all that taken out? And I went, yes, because I don't want to do this anymore. Can you imagine going, and she spent all her money going to what? Doctors. Have you ever been to a doctor and you know something's wrong, and they tell you you're healthy? It's in your head, you're healthy. Now sometimes it is in your head, but sometimes there's really what? Something wrong. There was really something wrong with her. And she was seen as impure. Nobody would have anything to do with her. And yet she had the faith to say, if I just what?
Just touch his word.
Just touch his garment. She went through a trial. And that wasn't easy, was it? What do we learn from these women in the trials? We learned that we must have courage to follow God and seek him in good times and in times of trial. God has a plan for us all. God knows that he cares for you. Circumstances do not make you who you are. Through God's plan and faithfulness to his word, you are a daughter of the King. You can survive and thrive. Not just survive, but thrive. Through trials, we learn submission to God's plan. This is Missy's heart. Submission to God's plan. Even when it contradicts our own desires or seems difficult, it's the best plan possible. God sees us and loves us and wants the best for us. Prayers is always our open line of communication to God. His timing and his plan is always greater than ours. Our lives are part of his story. I thought that was interesting when I saw that put that way. Our lives are part of his story, God's story. Trust in God. Know that he can and he will. Our emotions do not have to be perfect. Our prayers don't have to be perfect. Hannah's prayer was not perfect. It was messy. In fact, he thought she was what? Yeah. We are not perfect. God works behind the scenes using even the most challenging circumstances to save his people, and that trusting his timing and trusting his strength can lead to miraculous outcomes. We can take risks with God, knowing that God has our back. And we must give God the glory even when faced with suffering and an uncertain future. Are you willing? I thought this was neat that this went together. Are you willing to say yes, Lord, to whatever he calls us? And we didn't call, so we didn't do that. But we did do that, didn't we? God did that. God did that. And then perseverance means holding on to faith when everything seems hopeless. refusing to be defined by our circumstances and persistently seeking Jesus despite societal rejection or personal weakness. I got 1 minute, I'll hurry, I promise. Think about gold and fire. That first picture, do you see anything really beautiful? But many of you look down at your hands. Do you have something on that's gold, that's beautiful? It's refined. Paper. See, the way gold reacts to trials is different than the way paper reacts, right? Paper gets totally what? Consumed, burned up, gone. But gold can become something else. Or consider a forest fire. You know, you see a forest fire, and everything's gone. But then the next year you come back and what do you see coming from the remains? Growth, new growth. Are you tempted to despair? Do you display faithfulness or allow trials to refine you? Do you allow them to increase your reliance on the Lord? It's tempting to run from trials, guys. It's tempting to say, I can't do this. But we should seek Him and His will and ask, God, what do you want me to learn from this? Trials are difficult circumstances that test one's faith, but remember, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And then the last thing, I'm a huge Alabama fan. I have all the home tickets, Roll Tide, but I'm going to end with somebody from Auburn. This is the kicker from Auburn, Alex McPherson. He went through a lot of things. I don't know if he's the kicker this year, but he was the kicker. And he said, you cannot have a testimony without a test.
Absolutely.
If we have a testimony to share with other people, it's because of the trials that we go through. It's because of what we go through. And God knows that test will give us a testimony for Him, for people to see His Son and Him in us. So remember that. All right. Do you want to bless the food before we go out there? All right. Who wants to bless the food? So we have a volunteer that will pray for the food. Thank you. All right.
Lord, I thank you so much for gathering us all together, ladies in Christ and sisters in Christ. I thank you so much for the speakers that you allowed to get here safely. Thank you so much for allowing their hearts and their minds to open up your word to us and their hearts to us. And I pray that all of us take that in and apply it to our lives. Lord, thank you so much for allowing us to deep dive together and learn together so that we may learn and spread the gospel in all areas, not only by our example, but by word of mouth. Most importantly, I want to thank you for sending your only Son to die for us. And for that death, we have hope and salvation in you. And for that, we are forever grateful. Thank you so much for this day of life. I ask that you bless this food to our body as nourishment so that we may have a happy and healthy body